Sup gang, and welcome to part 3 of the Lego Vehicle Parade, and as a special treat I'm showing you my double-decker Lego bus completely lit up by LED lights and with lots of minifig passengers in there. If we zoom in onto the windows we can see some interesting passengers. This is on the top deck and there's some tourists there with their cameras ready to photograph London. And if we go onto the bottom deck, we've also got lots of passengers in there, including this commuter with a bowler hat getting onto the bus. And you can see in the background there's a ticket inspector there with a special London Transport uniform with that multi-cornered hat, which is actually made from an American police uniform. And if we just go to the front of the bus, again, it's got lovely bright headlights at the front there, and then the two sort of orange indicator lights over the wing mirrors. Now, of course, we're doing this special vehicle parade because I've had to temporarily remove the Lego buildings from Brickstead upstairs due to a family celebration in the dining room, so we've had to clear the table. But I just thought you'd like to see my great collection of Lego vehicles in the meantime. Before we continue with this broadcast, ladies and gentlemen, Sir Michael Caine would like to have a quick word. My name is Michael Caine. I'm on my way to do the Italian job, but can I just remind everybody to press that like and subscribe button. Now, if you don't press that like and subscribe, I'm going to get very emotional. My voice is going to go very deep because I'm getting very emotional. So make sure you press like and subscribe here, and why not make a contribution in the link below to the Patreon. And speaking of 5-stud vehicles, I saw this super little car on the internet. There's a lot of snot techniques here, studs not on top, because quite a lot of these bricks are kind of put on sideways and upside down and so on. It was originally just a sort of standard black coloured limousine on the internet version. I decided to make it in a sort of two-tone light blue and white version. It was called a Panda Car back in the 1960s. The police force used these cars experimentally because they were seen as being more visible, having this sort of two-tone light blue and white colouring. I think that looks like a really super little design for a car. I've given it the sort of sloping back, like the sort of proverbial, I think it was called a Ford Zephyr or something like that. And I've actually seen Harry Potter versions of this car in Lego. I think mine is particularly nice shape though. Now, a slightly earlier form of police car in Britain was this sort of dark blue Wolseley type vehicle, the sort of thing that Enid Blyton's famous 5 would be taken for a ride in after they just solved a smuggling problem or some sort of minor crime in the neighbourhood. The police inspector would normally take them for a celebratory cream tea back at the Nick, and this was the kind of vehicle that the police used in those days. Of course, there were no sirens as such. It was a sort of a bell on each side of the police light bulb, which normally flashed, but it was a kind of bell sound, not a siren in those days. And this one, of course, is a 6-stud vehicle, which if you put it next to the 5-stud one, notice it really does dramatically increase the scale of the vehicle there. I've noticed some of the Speed Champions cars are actually 8 studs now, which I think is way too big for Lego vehicles. I think 6 studs is pretty much the maximum, really, certainly for cars. In fact, if we have a look over here, I made a very similar vehicle as a Lego taxi. There are some small differences here. Obviously, this one's all made in black, like the proverbial London taxi cab. I've put a nice sort of square grille on the front there for the engine grille. There's a little taxi illuminated sign at the front there, and I copied someone else's idea. I don't know if you can see it with this camera because it being in black it's a bit difficult. Well, that's a bit easier to pick up there. Notice the windscreen wipers that I put on there as a little extra detail. And the other thing that I like, we've used sort of Lego roller skates to make the door handles for the car there. Of course, some of the vehicles are kind of ready-made Lego designed ones that I've sort of come across when I've bought old Lego sets from the charity shops, or thrift shops as the Americans say. For example, this Explorer's vehicle here, this it's got a sort of tank track arrangement on the side and a pterodactyl flying over. I think this was Lego's version of Indiana Jones, that kind of thing, where they've got the, I think he's called Johnny Thunder in the Lego canon there, and then the professor next to him in the car. However, just behind that is my own design. It's this super little ice cream van. I'm really proud of this. It's got a nice, lovely sort of retro engine frontage there, with the little square grille, the curved parts for the engine there. It's got the ice cream machines. I think you can just see them inside there. They're sort of Mr. Whippy type ice cream machines, and there's an ice cream man holding a cone there, and just behind him you can see there's a little refrigerator where the ice lollies and other things are kept in there. So that's a kind of typical 1950s 1960s sort of ice cream van. Notice the yellow and blue stripes there, which is quite difficult to achieve. If you look inside it, you see I had to make the chassis kind of blue and yellow alternate strips with 1x6 plates there, which was quite an interesting task. And another version of a 6-stud wide van is this super duper VW camping van, very retro from the 60s. I kind of adapted it from an existing camping van. As I've mentioned before, it was originally an 8-stud wide sort of bog standard vehicle, but what I did was firstly condensed it into a 6-stud wide van, so I put a totally different roof on it, including this wedge shaped vehicle roof. And also at the front I put the sort of V-shaped plates there with a nice sort of round 2x2 round stud with the VW sticker, which I made myself, and I put these big headlights on, which gives it that nice lovely kind of VW classic look. The headlights are actually slightly too big for the front, but I don't think that's a problem. It just kind of emphasises the size of the lights. And here's a classic 1950s style Morris J post office delivery van. I again copied this off the internet. Someone made a super little sort of post office and chip shop next to that, and you can easily find it on the internet. But I particularly like the van that went with it. It's this nice sort of Morris J van. Notice I've put two different stickers on as an experiment. On this side I've put the sort of classic 1950s Royal Mail logo, which is kind of a big square sticker, and I think the printing of it is quite good, because I've managed to match it quite well with the red of the plastic Lego pieces. And then on the other side I've put the modern Royal Mail logo, which in some ways works a bit better because you can cut the shape of it sort of in that sort of cross shape, and then you don't need to actually match the red with the red plastic, because it's sort of cut to shape. I don't know what you viewers think of that. Maybe you could let me know in the chat. The other small change that I made to the internet versions, I've put these little red doors on. I think they were just sort of ordinary bricks in the original version, but I wanted the doors on, so it gives that little door handle at the side, which looks nice. And I've also added two figures in there, which is of course Postman Pat and his black and white cat. And the other nice thing about this vehicle is that the doors are hinged at the back, and they sort of fully open like that, which is nice little detail, and I've actually used that idea on one or two of my other delivery vans that I've made, including this 6-stud van which I made a few weeks ago. Again, I copied it from the internet. It originally had a sort of 2x2 round stud on the side with a little logo on it. I didn't like that in the end, so I put my own sticker on, and again I've put a different sticker on the other side just to see which is the best version. Maybe again you could let me know in the chat which you think's the best. And just like the post office van, I copied the idea of having these nice hinged doors at the back, which open up quite nicely and close as well. Which leads us to a group of 3 fire engine vehicles which I've completely designed all by myself, starting with this kind of Land Rover vehicle at the front. I loosely based the idea on a ladybird illustration of a Land Rover with some firemen putting out a sort of fire in the countryside that had started under the grass up on the moors. And I've put a couple of firemen in the back with their sort of brushes and shovels and things ready for action there. The next one, of course, is this superb classic 1950s style fire engine. It's a sort of bog standard Dennis type van with the fire engine ladder on the top. Notice the greeblies that I've put here. In other words, the little sort of kind of bits and bobs on the side of the fire engine, which makes it look more realistic. We've got the opening doors here as well. If I can open it, it's a bit stuck actually, but it does open. And then on the back again we've got some more greeblies, basically these sort of levers and valves which the firemen would use to plug in their hoses. And on that side we've got a nice gold stud which I had when I ordered some shiny Lego things from a Polish website that sort of puts shiny gold or silver onto Lego bricks, and they gave me that as a free gift, so I used it as the sort of petrol cap on the fire engine. I'm really pleased with that. That's a sort of homage to the smaller fire engine that the Lego people brought out in the 1970s, which I used to have many years ago. And behind that, a slightly larger vehicle. I think this is called a platform ladder or turntable vehicle, basically, because as you can see it's got a turntable with the ladder which extends out, and I've put a little sort of platform holder there for the firemen to stand on. These would be used in quite high buildings where the firemen need to get up really high on the ladders. And again, it's a sort of 1950s Dennis type vehicle. I've used quite a large steering wheel, as you can see in there. And speaking of emergency vehicles, we've got a lovely 1960s style, maybe 1950s style actually, ambulance driven by 2 ambulance drivers. They weren't called paramedics in those days. They were basically just kind of glorified porters who carried stretchers and plonked you in the back of the ambulance, then took you off to hospital. You didn't really get much in the way of first aid at the scene in those days. And inside this ambulance, again, I've used the hinged doors idea at the back. There's a nice little sort of stretcher with a somewhat distressed looking patient on the back there, and that slots into the back of the van. He's covered in bandages, as you can see. Moving swiftly on to the Royal Parade, we just had a coronation in Great Britain recently, so as a kind of homage to that, we've got the King and Queen of Legoland in their limousine. The police car we've already looked at. We've got some kind of motorcycle outriders which are just sort of bog standard Lego police motorbikes, which I found in old Lego sets that I bought. But the actual limousine, I basically copied the design from the internet, which was originally in dark red, but I've put it in black. And it's a sort of 1930s style limousine with a lovely running board with those little grey grills on. And then you can see the royal couple at the back, the king and queen of Legoland. Okay gang, gotta bounce. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you want to make a contribution via Patreon, the link is in the description below. Live long and prosper, and I'll see you all next time.